On this day 5 years ago, the UK voted to leave the bloated European Union. They rejected being part of a growing bureaucracy located overseas, dictating to them the laws of their nation. The European Union is a metaphor of the rank over-governance that we find ourselves in today. The UK public knew that, and with the advocacy of Nigel Farage and Boris Johnson, they voted to take back their country and be the creators of their own destiny. But look at where the UK is today. Brexit was supposed to inject a shot of strength to the arm of the UK. Now Britain seems beholden by public health officials, eager to introduce vaccine passports and endless lockdowns. As the very good columnist Alistair Heath wrote in the UK Telegraph, and I quote, this applies to us, by the way, quote, "I will mourn the liberal conservative Britain of yore, beloved of those who didn't like being told what to do. The government felt obliged to sacrifice it in the panic that followed COVID," unquote. Australians, take note of the restrictions. Heath writes, quote, "They'll make Britain," listen to this in relation to what, substitute Australia for Britain, "they'll make Britain permanently less free, prosperous and civilised." The same can be said here about Australia. Alistair Heath goes on, "Lockdown's catastrophic collateral damage, combined with a series of pre-existing errors, such as Boris Johnson's spending spree, his net zero agenda and the housing shortage, mean Britain faces years of social and economic decline, tax rises and inflation." He says the Tories may be riding high in the polls today, but they'll soon have to grapple with some nightmarish challenges, unquote. I have repeatedly said the same thing about the Morrison government here. Our entire economy is on life support, yet both Labor and Liberals can only consume themselves with chatter about climate change and net zero carbon dioxide emissions. There are greater challenges ahead, and thank God that Barnaby Joyce is the only one in the leadership team prepared to speak up about them. In what can only be described as a moment of melancholy, Heath sums up the new world for which we, the citizens of the Western world, have only ourselves to blame, when he writes, "The next steps are obvious. There'll be a push for digital IDs, with health and financial data connected, for state bodies to be granted the right to track us using our phone signals to facilitate contact tracing. Travel bans will be imposed at the first sign of any new virus, and furlough and mass state intervention will be the norm during every downturn. There'll be work from home orders, remote schooling and lockdowns come the next bad flu season, all to save the NHS, and the national debt will eventually reach Italian or Japanese levels. There'll be no tax reform or supply-side tax cuts," unquote. You can apply all of that to Australia and the rest of the Western world. Here we have a so-called Liberal government. Name me one thing the Morrison government has done to assert our civil liberties and our freedoms. Think Daniel Andrews, Anastasia Palaszczuk, Black Lives Matter, Peter Ridd, Mark Vaile. Freedoms. You're kidding me. Our country's at a turning point, and our national government is at best lethargic when it comes to standing up and defending Australian values. I know it's a huge burden to place on any one person, but I know we can handle it. Barnaby Joyce is the veritable hope of the side. As Deputy Prime Minister, he's the only politician in government who can stand up to the illiberal ways of the coalition and roll back their obsessions with climate change and selling off the best of Australia to foreigners. I'll be interviewing Barnaby early next week. We'll share with you his plans that Australia needs to step back from the brink of authoritarianism. And yes, it's socialism masquerading as liberalism. What do you think? Email me, alan@skynews.com.au, or the text line 0414 000 848.